All right, we're going to end this section just by giving a little bit of a review of our common pitfalls that a visual effects modeler has to deal with. And if you want to be a visual effects modeler, these are really important things to remember and to live by. So common pitfalls. Number one, not using reference and image planes. You know, reference is the key. Nobody knows what everything looks like, so find lots of reference. Create mood boards, create style boards and style frames. You know, it's kind of obvious when people aren't using reference. Because things look made up and they don't look accurate, they don't look real. And, you know, you don't have to stress and struggle with what something looks like if you have good reference of what you're trying to build. So that's huge. Don't take on too much at once, the scope of the asset. If your task is to build London, don't start building London. Build pieces of London and build a library that you can mix and match later on. Bridges and stores and you know, cars and things of that nature. So I see a lot of people take on huge, you know, teaching students in the past, I see that often, just taking on far too much at once. Ignoring topology. Now, you know, even if you say, well, I never want to be an animator and I don't want to do look dev or shader, or I don't want to rig, I just want to create models. Well, you could do that and you could, you know, live in a vacuum and you know, and maybe make some turntables, and that's fine for a hobby. But if you're going to get into an actual studio and create finished work with a team of people, then topology is what's going to hold it all together and allow the other people on the team to utilize what you build and utilize it well. I've seen models get kicked back because it's just built poorly. You do not want your models kicked back because the animator or the rigger just can't work with it. Okay, so topology is super, super important. That's what I'm talking about when we mentioned n-gons and quads and tris and all kinds of good stuff like that. Too many subdivisions too early. This is basically getting too detailed, too fast, too heavy of a mesh. Okay, leave it as light as possible until you absolutely have to subdivide. And even then, you version up, right? You're always versioning up, by the way. So if it's too heavy, then you can't work with it. It becomes clumsy and cumbersome to work with. So don't make it too heavy and detailed before you actually have to. I see this a lot also. Students model seamless meshes. If you were building a car, sometimes I see the whole car as one big cube and then carved away. That is not how you model. Model something as it's built in the real world. A car isn't just basically carved out of one chunk of metal. The hood is separate than the fender, separate from the grille. So make those separate objects in your 3D program. It's imperative you do that. That way you don't have to do subpolygonal face selecting for shaders. You don't have to, you know, it just, if you're making edge loops on one side, you're not screwing things up on the other side. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just remember this. Build your models as if you were building it in the real world. Okay, if the object is made up of 30 pieces, your model should be made up of 30 pieces. Okay, and then of course not adding any imperfections. Nothing looks worse than perfect CG. It looks fake. Okay, because the real world is full of dents and dings and scuffs and stains and all kinds of stuff. You know, when it comes to modeling, razor sharp edges, they look ridiculous. There's nothing. Not even a razor is razor sharp if you think about it. So, you know, you're always beveling. You're always adding little edges to things. Everything should be beveled. Everything should have, even the smallest little edge work is going to pick up light and it's going to make it look better. Super important. And then the other thing is concentrating solely on the small little details and not the overall form. Like, for example, if you were modeling Big Ben, the clock tower in London, and you were spending so much time on, you know, the little intricate, ornate decorations that surround the clock face, and you spent days and weeks on that stuff, and then you realize, wait a minute, my clock tower is only about, you know, 20 feet high. Whoops. All right. So it's like a painting. Broad strokes first, fine strokes later. Same thing with a model. Block it out. Make the big shapes fit together. And get approval on that. Say this is what you want, especially if you're working with as a freelancer in a studio. And then go back, and if it's a strong foundation, then all the small little pieces are going to just only augment an already very strong model. So those are my tips and tricks to be a great modeler. There's obviously 1,000 more things, and this is just an introductory course to that. In our last section, we are going to talk about CG environments. Let's go.